Okay, so as very understandably, lots of people, especially in higher education, are now starting to internalize some of the hype around agentic AI coding tools, things like Claude Code, Open Code, Codex, Gemini CLI, Anti-Gravity, all kinds of ones available. They are extremely powerful. The problem is they are so powerful they can basically brick your machine and delete your life's work. There was a story very recently about a case like that. Once you give an AI access that it can write as well as read stuff on your machine, horrible things can happen. I'll show you some examples of those in this presentation. And it's the number one thing, and you need to basically keep it on a leash. There's lots of advice people give, and frankly, most of it is wishful thinking, in my view. Really, the only solution is to put it into a container, into a sandbox that is isolated, because you have to expect that it will go rogue, accidentally or otherwise. So it could be malicious prompt injection. It could be the AI just sick of your crap and wants to delete your files to get back at you because you didn't say please enough or whatever. But you need to make sure that the damage is minimal. So this is the summary. Now, if you see on the right there, so basically you can do plain English standard requests, but what CLIs, command line interface environments, can do, they can run terminal commands, which means they can run programs, they can open files, they can search files, they can merge files, they can do data analysis, they can install libraries, they can search the web. I'm going to recommend you don't enable web search later on, but they can do all this very, very cool stuff all on your machine. And frankly, I consider this to be where all the exciting, really powerful stuff in AI is happening. Anything that I don't need a chatbot for, or anything that doesn't require privacy, where I would use the M365 Copilot. I basically use Codex for everything because the models behind it are spectacular at following instructions, and they are just unbelievably capable to the point where I'm not sure how much better they can get based on my capability of knowing what to ask. It's really quite extraordinary. Um, but the horror stories, there are many of these. And by the way, Opus made this PowerPoint for me based on what I said I was going to do for this starter pack and for the kind of slides that I want. These are real examples, and they're all well-meaning. The AI just made an accidental error, and it was just like, whoops, sorry. Hopefully you had a backup or something, and it's just literally the entire machine destroyed, which is doable with the text commands when it has access to your terminal. This is the number one thing. So what this talk about and this starter kit is not going to be about associated adjacent issues around safety when it comes to things like privacy, bias, anything else to do with that. It's more about just how do you stop it, keep it on some kind of leash to stop it doing crazy stuff on your files. So yeah. And yeah, so basically, if you look at every single AI labs, yeah, Anthropic, OpenAI, they always say never use in the Claude code, it's famously called dangerously skip permissions. So clues in the name and people don't care, they just do it anyway. Same Codex as well, OpenAI say never use this, always restrict access. The problem is nobody works like that because if you've seen what it's like, you have to prove every single command. It sometimes has to do like hundreds of tasks, subtasks as part of an overall task. That is not workable. No one does it. So people just accept that things could go wrong in exchange for the convenience of letting it do its magic, which is what it's really meant for. Um, yeah, and the ones who do say approve, look, 99% of them do not know everything. These bash commands and the grep commands where you do these complex regex searches, I guarantee most people don't know what that is, but they're just like, fine, enter, tab, just let the AI do it. And yeah, they're lying to themselves as I think they understand that. So it's basically just a farce, performative. You think you're in control, but really you're just hitting tab and letting the thing do it. So how do we do it? We just have to accept things can go wrong. But what we want to do is limit that blast radius. And the best way to do that is with a container. So there are many ways to do this. Like if you really want to and can want to set this up, you can build an entire virtual machine with an operating system and do that there and have that running on the cloud. That can cost money. There are free options out there, but the really easy way is just to use Docker. So Docker is very well known for anyone in the software dev world. It builds these containers that have like a very slimline kind of runtime environment where you can do stuff where it's fully self-contained. And it means you can then run your YOLO mode and you can have the AI do all this cool stuff for you with the comfort of knowing that it won't break out and access your other files on your machine and break stuff there. The other thing that I will strongly recommend, in fact, I think this is really non-negotiable, don't give the AI internet access. I know that's important. You need to install libraries. If you want to do MPC servers, I'm not a fan of those, but if you want to install those, you have internet access to be able to do that. I personally think the risk is just too high to be able to put that into anything that's going to be consequential if things go wrong. Prompt injection is a real thing. People are starting to get better at building hacks that can prompt inject. It's just not worth it. So once you've got that locked off, once you've got your machine locked off, you can absolutely do YOLO mode and you can just watch it do all the magic you want. Keep it back up anyway, because obviously it can still delete things in that. And then related to that, Git is an absolute must-have. This is an incredibly powerful version control system that allows you multiple parallel timelines where you can branch off and you can undo whenever you want and you don't lose anything. Especially useful. My approach, I'm going to show this in the demo later on, is just create a feature branch when you want to do something new so your main branch doesn't get affected. Experiment on that, test that, make sure it's working, then you can merge that and it'll become your main branch later on. So I'm going to stop the video now and then going to do the actual live version where we're going to use VS Code and Docker to actually run this. Okay, so now we're doing part two, which is actually fun stuff of setting up, installing the software, and actually playing around with this agent in a safe way. So what I did, I got GPT to help me with a starter pack with some dummy data on campus sales just to see some basic Python data analysis. And set up, importantly, the config so that we could install on Docker a containerized environment with a slimline Python runtime, and then the basic packages for analysis and plots for visuals. So basically, all this is all going to be shared in the post that I do on GitHub later on, and it's going to have a README as well that you can access and work with. So you're going to need two things: Visual Studio Code. So if you just do, I'm not going to insult people's intelligence, you know how to download software, download Visual Studio Code, and then download Docker Desktop. This is the tool that is going to run. This is what it looks like at the moment. I've got nothing running, but once it's live, it will basically create that container, which is fully self-contained, where you could like play around safely with the agentic tools. So assuming you've got the VS Code now downloaded, you would go to that and then open with code. So trust the author. So right now this is on my local machine. Okay, what you need is to install the extension. Firstly, you're going to need Codex as well. So search for that. I've already got that on my machine. Open it as Codex, install that. Then you'll have the Codex on the sidebar at the end. And then the other one is Dev Containers. This is the Microsoft tool that lets you use Docker to change this folder into something that's completely containerized. So already got that, and that's in. And what you want to do is it's Control Shift P, it might be Control Command P on a Mac, I don't know, I don't use Mac, but you do dev containers reopen in container. And that'll take a second. All right, that took a couple of minutes, but now if I go to Docker, I can see that this is now running live in that desktop Linux environment. So Linux is just the operating system that allows all the bash commands, which are the terminal commands that let us do all the cool stuff. And we see here the starter pack that I got from ChatGPT. It's got a README, full guide here. It's got this Campus Cafe data, which is all just made up, and 29,000 rows, so a very successful Campus Cafe. So it's got configs for VS Code, dev container. It's got what's allowed, OpenAI ChatGPT for Codex, Python. So this is all the container where this is the stuff that's been allowed. You just ask ChatGPT to help you expand this for later on. If you look at the Docker file itself, very, very basic. So we've got Python 3.12 Slim. Got pip and small install for pandas and matplotlib. These are the Python environments to allow working with data sources and extracting data and working with plots and bash commands. So it's a very, very basic minimalist environment where we can do stuff. So what you want to do is do a terminal, new terminal. And the easiest way, honestly, just F5 inside the Python file to run. And we can see it do the analysis. I say total revenue 101,000, blah, blah, blah. And then if we look at data outputs, we can see the plots that all that created, all that was done in seconds. Obviously, you can do way more complicated stuff than this, and you can do it with qualitative, unstructured data as well. That's in fact where I think the most exciting stuff is. Um, and yeah, so that's basically it. And now I can ask Codex to do literally anything I want. But before I do that, I want to set up Git for version control. This is really, really important. It's a must-have for anything you do because it just allows you to save stuff and go back and undo and experiment safely with new ideas without affecting your main branch of work. It's extremely powerful. So I'm normally used to using Git terminal commands, but VS Code has a Git plugin where you can do this with the uh, interface. So it's source control, that button on the far left there. So I'm going to initialize the repository. Fine. And I'm going to do all of that. And I'm going to say initial commit. And commit just is when you're happy with something and you're willing to save the changes, basically. All right. So actually, the first thing you want to do is git add, which in this case will be, where is it? Changes, stage all changes. And then we can commit. And so then we've basically got this now new setup. So let's say now I want to do some fancy new feature, like let's say for the plots, I want to change these to green. So it's a big consequential feature I want to do in this code base, and I don't want to risk affecting my main branch with something as drastic as changing the color of the plots. So I want to create a new feature branch. So it would be branch, create branch, and I'll call it something like feature color scheme. And so if I go to that, I'm in this one, I will select it. And I'll go to Codex on the right and say, please update the plots so the bars are green rather than blue. Okay, so in reality, you can ask this to do far more complex stuff than this. It can literally work for me, I've never gone more than 20 minutes because I always like to keep my iterations very, very small. I need to keep everything in my own head so I can have some oversight of what's going on. But, there's stories of people working for literal hours doing this. So you saw how quick that is, 5.3 codex is very, very quick. So now if I do that again, analyze pi, and I go back to the plots, they are dark green now. Hurrah. All right, now, so I'm happy with this. I'm like, I've tested it out. I know this is what I want. I'm now happy to commit that and merge it to my main branch rather than being experimental feature branch. So I go to here and where is it? Changes. Firstly, I'm going to add stage all changes and I'm going to commit updated bars to green and then commit. Am I in the right branch? Let me quickly check this. Right. Okay, I'm so used to doing git add that using this GUI is kind of stage all changes. Sorry, I could just easily just do this with git add and git commit in the command line, but I'm trying to show people how to use the GUI to make this less painful. All right, so I figured it out. Didn't realize that there's a refresh button on the GUI for source control up there. It's honestly easier if you just watch a YouTube video introduction to basic Git commands where you can just do command line. It's actually not very difficult, but I was trying to make this so that you can use point and click interface to make it easier. But yeah, once I refreshed, the thing showed up. So now I'm on the feature branch still color scheme, so I can say updated bars to green and commit, and yes, it changes as well. All right, so now what I want to do is merge that into my main branch because I'm happy with it and I can think it's good enough for production now. Those green bars are great. So now I'll go to branch and merge and click on main. And if I now switch to main, believe that's there. So I'm going to verify that in the command line. Come here. Okay, so now we're on a clean branch. The dark green one is now in the main branch as well. So what I've done there is experimented with a high risk feature, changing the colors in a separate branch to make sure it doesn't affect my main branch. And then once I'm happy with that, I've merged that. So it's now just the one clean main branch, which has that change. Now we're going to do something actually fun. So I'm going to ask Codex to do something way more fancy. So I'm going to create this into some kind of fancy web app. I'm going to use Flask. Note that because we don't allow internet access in this, I'm going to have to install the new dependencies, the libraries myself. But I'm going to ask Codex how to do this. So I'm going to say in this directory, there's a starter pack for. Okay, see there, I've made it clear to it what the context is. So I'm just going to do something where a web app is going to be done. It's going to show something far more complex of what Codex can do in a single shot. The one thing that I will still have to do because I don't allow internet access is installing the actual libraries myself. It's a slight annoyance, but it's worth it. So, all right, so you can see it's going to add files. So if I go to the files, it's going to basically watch it in action. And the new Codex 5.3 is pretty good. It's better now at showing you what it's actually doing for each step. You could always see it by expanding before, but it was like a bit of a mess. Obviously, it's starting on the code. So app.py. See, these are errors, but don't care about those. It will probably fix those itself later. It's creating the HTML page for it. Now it's creating the styles with the CSS. And you can see there it's doing smoke tests. So this is basically it testing out its own results. That's the beauty of this agentic terminal environment because it can run tests. It can have an empirical feedback loop. So it's not like in the old days like last year, where you would copy and paste code back and forth and like Claude ChatGPT would tell you, here's a fully working code. But it's pure speculation, right? It hasn't tested out the code. It's got no idea. And often it doesn't work. And you have to go back and say, I've got this error, that error. What this can do is actually run the code, test out the results, does it compare to expectations? If not, reiterate and reiterate. And if you tell it to use test-driven development, it's even better. It really gives it an empirical feedback loop to get things right first time. All right, so I'm going to quickly update so this is the command pip install requirements.txt. So basically that's updated all the Flask web app stuff. I already had pandas and matplotlib to be able to do those. So I'm going to do flask run. Is it not there? It's actually just Python app.py in this case. Okay, so if I go here, all right, so where's the file? Data, I think that's it. Okay, choose file. Okay, analyze data set. And look at that. Amazing, right? So obviously you could change this to whatever, but you saw how quick that was. And obviously, if you just know, if you understand at an intuitive level what you can do with code, your mind should be racing with the possibilities here of what could be done. This is like such a minimal toy example. Um, But I mean, look at this. It's just absolutely fantastic in the heat map there, right? It's trivial. It's just a single CSV, but it just did that in one go. Um, this goes way beyond. So you can do things like a lot of the workflows I use involve lots of PDFs, HTML, Word docs, extracting the text, chunking it up, and then using AI to classify things and put it into different categories in order to do some kind of analysis later on. Um, all that is doable with code, and with an AI in the driving seat, it can do that like thousands of times quicker than a human can. So, yeah, now that you know you could do this in a safe environment, containerized, it will not impact your other files. It doesn't have access to the web, so you can't be prompt injected and hacked. You can really let rip and just like do all kinds of cool stuff.